Billy Lemons has requested, I'm going to say only no friendlies today. I really want to get a MAGA call in, so please be a supporter of Trump. Please obey the TikTok TOS, and tell me, first of all, how old are you?
Hey, good afternoon. I'm 30 years old.
30 years old, I believe you. Do you support Trump?
Yeah, I voted for Trump, and I still currently support him, yeah.
Why, dude?
Oh, many different policy reasons. I'd, be happy to talk about any of them. And yeah, just to preface, I mean, he's certainly not perfect. I mean, there's a bunch of things I disagree with, but overwhelmingly, I think he's been a massive improvement than like the last 5 to 10 presidents we've had.
Okay, yeah, I think that's wrong. But before we get onto policy, I do just want to say, because I always ask this when people talk about his policy. So would you admit that his character is reprehensible, but you just don't care because you like his policies so much? Is that accurate about your position?
I think most politicians' characters are reprehensible. I don't think it's just Trump. I don't think it's just Republicans or just Democrats.
So I think most of them are. This might be what we're about to argue about, because I would argue that Trump's character is reprehensible in a way that is unique to him among politicians in America from living memory. Because, yeah, there's like slave owners and stuff from the 1800s who are, terrible stuff in the past. But like compared to any of, like, I'm 30, so I don't remember Bill Clinton being president, but he was president when I was a baby. I remember Bush, Obama, and of course Trump and Biden. And like among them, Trump's character is uniquely reprehensible. Would you agree with that statement?
No, I wouldn't.
Okay, so I'm going to start arguing in favor of that particular claim, which is that...
Well, let's start with Bush. I think Bush was much more morally corrupt than Trump is, and it's not even close.
What did he do that was morally corrupt?
Yeah, I think the Bush-Cheney administration lied to us about why we invaded Iraq and Afghanistan. We illegally invaded and then occupied two countries halfway across the world, which led to, 10,000 American unalivings, maybe hundreds of thousands of Native unalivings. I think that's pretty bad and pretty reprehensible. Don't you agree?
While we're only 1 month into the current conflict, Trump just did exactly that.
I wouldn't compare what's happening to Iran to Iraq or Afghanistan, where there were ground invasions.
Right, but we're preparing for ground invasions. We are sending troops to the region. Not enough to suggest like a full military takeover, but that's also not the speed at which that sort of thing happened necessarily in the response to 9/11, especially because Bush spent as much time as he did garnering the support of Congress and the American people before we started the war. Trump just did it without asking Congress, illegally, by the way, and also lied, and he didn't have a 9/11 to point at and say, look, they did 9/11. Like, how do you not see not only that there's a good parallel here, but that in many ways what Trump did is more morally reprehensible because he didn't have the sort of grounds that, as a matter of fact, Bush did, because 9/11 did happen. I watched it with my own eyeballs.
Well, Iraq had nothing to do with 9/11, and the Taliban, who were in control of Afghanistan at the time before we invaded, had nothing to do with 9/11. So using 9/11 as a pretext to why we invaded both Afghanistan and Iraq don't make any sense to me. Because again, Al-Qaeda, Osama bin Laden, was an extremist within Afghanistan, but he wasn't in control of the country of Afghanistan. That's what the Taliban were doing. So we went in there, and instead of actually going after the people who perpetrated 9/11, we went in there and overthrew the government occupying the entirety of Afghanistan.
Right, and Trump is
Trump
is making the same sort of mistakes, having just watched us do that. Can you imagine how harshly you'd be criticizing Bush if a president 20 years prior had done exactly the same thing? There were some Middle East conflicts we were involved in 20 years prior to that, but none of this goose chasing of WMDs that shows how bad an influence we have on these countries when we do these sort of involvements. Trump is doing the same thing. So I'm going to call it 1 for 1, and also point out that you immediately brought up foreign policy when I talked to you about his character. I'm going to assume because you don't probably want to talk about the sexual abuse record of people like Bush or Obama or Biden, because they have none, and Trump's sexual abuse record is lengthy.
Yeah, well, again, it's not just about SA, right? It's not your character isn't just about what you do sexually. It's also what you do when you're in control. Like, for example, when Bush and Cheney were in control. Okay. And then again, I would say that even even after Bush, I mean, Obama attacked Libya, Syria. He didn't receive congressional approval for those attack campaigns on those countries, which then led to boots on the ground.
I spent 5 or 10 minutes before you called in talking to the chat about the fact that there's a number of like gotchas with Obama and Biden that people always bring up in response to everything, and I actually specifically cited the fact that Obama did some pretty like bad airstrikes as like this sort of thing where if you look at an 8-year presidency and you say, look at this airstrike, this was bad, and you bring that up every time Trump does anything. The problem is Trump, right? Like every president has some controversies that are bad, like things that I won't defend. But Trump does something that bad every week. But again, you're talking about foreign policy instead of his sexual abuse record. And I'd like to talk about his sexual abuse record.
So then why didn't you? So that's all you. So you just want to talk about before he was president. You don't want to talk about the policies while they were president.
I think he's. I think the conversation started by you saying that you like his policy.
I care about policy. Right. And then you pivoted to personal character.
Right, because I think it's interesting that you would...
I don't think it matters.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting that you don't think that the character of the president matters, and that's exactly why I took the conversation in that direction. I think that sheds light on what you think about American values, what you think is important to governance in this country. You are okay with a president who has bad character, and I think that we should seek presidents who have generally good characters.
So who is the last president that had good character in your opinion?
I think Obama had perfectly fine character.
Really?
I think Biden did.
Interesting. And his his foreign policy, or even his domestic policy and foreign policy, you see nothing immoral about Obama's policies while he was president?
That's not what I said, dude. I literally just a moment ago responded to your thing about the airstrikes, which I agree with, and said that you can take the worst thing from an 8-year presidency and compare it to everything that Trump does every day, and Trump looks pretty bad until you realize...
So what's worse than Syria and Libya?
Okay, again,
in terms of Obama, what's worse?
To these foreign policy positions, and I'm just talking about his character. Obama didn't cheat on any of his wives. He didn't sexually abuse anybody. He wasn't a convicted felon. Like, how is none of this?
Yeah, I think host, because I think attacking a foreign country is worse than what you're accusing Trump of.
Trump
I think waging an illegal war.
Foreign countries this calendar year.
Okay, how long did Obama bomb Syria for?
I don't remember the timeline of
it was like 8 months, 9 months.
But again, you're very stuck.
So we're on month one.
You're very stuck on these.
No, you are.
Obama participated in wars that were started by the president before him. Trump has started a new war. You yourself criticized.
What about Syria and Libya?
Started the war that Obama was fighting.
What did Bush do in Syria and Libya, sir?
No, you're okay. You're right. He did those preemptive strikes in.
Oh, okay. So so he did start new wars, right? Obama started new wars too, right?
Yes, I'm not saying that no president has ever started wars. I'm just talking about the things that Trump has done, and I don't accept...
You said Obama right before. He didn't start any new wars. He was continuing wars started by past presidents.
I did not say that he did not start new wars. I said that he was fighting wars that were started before him. But
and he started new wars,
Yes, but the major war that you were talking about with a million boots on the ground was not started by him. That's what I was referring to. I didn't exclude all other foreign military involvement that he had. Again, you're talking about the same talking point that people always bring up, and I'm just saying how...
And you're bringing up the same talking point, dude. You don't want to talk about any policies. You want to just go back to personal essay, where he's been found guilty of being civilly liable one time. So
that's
you're saying that
way too many times.
Okay, buddy, again, you're telling me that I'm going to these generic talking points. You're literally bringing up the same thing that everybody says.
We never finished our conversation about his
policy-wise.
No,
because you can't talk policy, so you want to talk about his character.
I started the conversation by saying that I wanted to talk to you about his character, and you have deflected back to policy every time I said anything about it. Dude, you want to, do I need to roll it back? Maybe this conversation will find its way to YouTube, and you can go listen to exactly that happening.
That would be great.
You said that you like his policy, and I said, instead of talking about policy, I'm very interested in the fact that you value, that you're saying that you recognize that his character is bad, and then you support him anyway because of his policy, and your response to that was that every politician is bad, and then I said that Trump's character is uniquely bad compared to presidents and politicians generally from living memory. Right? Chat, correct me if I'm wrong. This is how the conversation went,
essay is uniquely evil. That essay is uniquely evil.
Among presidents, Trump's record with essay is unique. Among living...
Being civilly liable, okay, which is a lower threshold.
When I say his record, I'm actually just
reasonable
talking
doubt, right?
about. I'm actually just talking about the things that I think it's obvious that he did, not necessarily just the one SA charge.
All right. Well, why don't you
Carroll.
bring it up? Besides Eugene Carroll, what is the other bad character moment for him?
Okay, so I mean, if we're going to stay on sexual abuse, this is a person who flirted with a 10-year-old girl in public on camera, went on the Howard Stern show and bragged about sexually abusing women and girls by barging into their locker rooms without their permission to enjoy looking at their naked bodies, to quote the Dean Withers line that everybody hears a million times because people like you still keep calling in and asking about it. This is a person who, yes, did all those things with Eugene Carroll. Then after that, I'd like to bring up that when she in public said that he had raped her, he then sued her and said, nope, that's not what the jury verdict form said. The judge looked at the case, said, nope, but what you did do was, it is substantially true that what you did was considered by most people to be rape.
Wait. So then
when
why did ABC give $18 million to the Trump Presidential Library? Why did that happen?
I know the answer to that one. It's because...
Good. I would love the answer.
I'll give it to you in just a second. I'm going to talk about another lawsuit that happened in the middle just so we can bing, bang, boom them all, because there was the Eugene Carroll lawsuit that was thrown out because the judge considered it rape. CNN was sued about the same thing, and the judge threw it out because it was, in fact, rape. And then ABC was sued, and the reason that suit was paid out is because what Stephanopoulos said is not that Trump had raped her, but that he had been found civilly liable for rape, which happens to be false because in the past, the definition of rape in New York did not include what Trump did, which was to forcefully insert his fingers into her body without her permission. That is now considered by any civilized person to be rape, and by most legal jurisdictions in the United States to be rape. So because of that technicality, yes, that one of those three lawsuits was paid out. Because what he said was factually false. Trump was not...
he wasn't liable for rape.
He was not... Yeah, if you read the jury verdict form, the jury voted no on rape because at the time, New York did not define what Trump had done as rape. New York currently defines it that way. I define it that way. And if you don't define it that way, I would argue that you are a bad person.
Okay.
It's not okay.
No, I'm saying okay to your statement. That's perfectly fine. You can feel however you want.
No, I none of this is okay. This isn't an agree to disagree thing. Trump did something that was violent and bad to a woman. Do you recognize that?
I haven't seen any evidence other than what she claimed.
You don't consider him having been found civilly liable by a jury unanimously to be evidence of him having done that thing.
Why wasn't he found criminally liable?
Because the statute of limitations had expired.
Got it.
Which I disagree with. Also, I don't think that there.
So why didn't she pursue this while the statute of limitations was still happening?
We have entered the victim blaming chapter of this conversation, where you start listing reasons why she should have done something
cookie cutter,
better.
dude.
Yes, it is. Every single one of these conversations is the same, which is why it's so easy to dog walk people.
Because you're bringing up the same topic. You just bring up all you could talk about is his SA case. You can't talk about
called into a
any
TikTok
policies.
live where people. Yeah, you called into a TikTok live where people talk about these sorts of things, and I am going to keep us on his character.
The same thing over and over again?
Yep, that's what I do. Okay. I sit here and talk to Republicans about the same thing over and over again. Now, what is your response to the three lawsuits? Two of those three judges recognize that what he did is rape.
What were the other two?
Eugene Carroll.
Not Eugene Carroll. Yeah, I said besides that one, what was the other one?
I think what you're missing...
Who was it?
It was there was CNN, ABC, and Eugene Carroll, and it was the ABC one with Stephanopoulos was paid out because what he said was technically false about exactly what the charges on the verdict form had been. But again, the definition of New York has changed in just the same way that the law has now changed to include the slaves in America as victims of rape. But actually,
so what was the other?
I want to finish what I'm saying. The argument that you're using, the argument that you're using to say that Trump isn't a rapist is one that could be used to say that not a single slave in this country was ever raped because the law did not define what the slave owners were doing at the time as rape. So to follow your argument, would you just say it here for everybody? No slaves in America were raped. No slave owners were rapists.
No, I'm sure that they were.
But no, the law it didn't have a legal definition for rape for African-American slaves. So what they were doing wasn't rape. They aren't rapists.
Okay, if that's how you want to phrase it,
that's how you want to phrase it, because that is how you're phrasing it about Trump. You're saying that he wasn't a rapist because it wasn't defined as rape at the time.
No, I'm asking you to bring up another example besides Eugene Carroll, and you keep pivoting back to Eugene Carroll.
You're asking me to pivot for you, and I am trying to get your answer to this. Why are you okay using an argument?
No, dude, you bring up the same thing over and over again. All you people are the same. You can't talk about policy, so you revert back to this. It's just kind of sad, to be honest.
Somebody's asking
it's a lot easier.
Somebody's asking how much to kick the guest. I'll kick the guest. I've got a Venmo in my link tree. I'll kick the guest for $10.
Yo, e-begging isn't cool, dude.
Yeah, I think it's lame that there's like a financial structure to this. And I was talking about that before you came on, that I have to do this in a way that's entertaining and financially viable, or I won't be able to spend this much time doing it. So appreciate the support, everybody. But again, I'm really not going to let you go on this. You said that Donald Trump isn't a rapist because what he did at the time was not defined as rape, even though
I never said that. When did I say that?
Let me just ask you this, yes or no, is Donald Trump a rapist?
No, wait. You said that I said that. Did I say that?
You argued it. I'll ask you this. Is Donald Trump a rapist, yes or no?
Yeah, I would say no.
Okay, so you think that forcefully putting your fingers into a person's body is or is not rape?
Yeah, I don't think somebody claiming something 30 years
That's
later
not what I
is
asked.
sufficient evidence for that.
That's not what I asked. My question is, if somebody, let's use you for example.
Sure, yes, that would be considered rape,
okay,
sure.
So you do think that the thing that he was found civilly liable for doing was rape?
Yeah, it could be considered it.
Okay. Now I can hear where you're going because you brought it up a second ago and I pulled you back so we can do this one step at a time. You recognize that what he did was rape. You recognize that he was found civilly liable for it. So you think the jury was wrong?
Well, no, yeah, I think the case is ridiculous. Yes.
Okay, why?
Because besides her claim, I haven't seen any evidence that he actually did it. Besides what she claims he did.
9 jurors saw.
Is there any other evidence besides
9 jurors, 3 of which had identified themselves as right-leaning?
What
Trump
evidence?
supporters.
Show me it.
I'm not going to go point by point through the E. Jean Carroll case for 2 reasons. One,
perfect.
For 2 reasons. I'm going to explain to you why. One of them is that it has been done to death. You're right yourself. These conversations are cookie cutter. Go watch Gene Withers. Go look this up yourself. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, you're doing the same thing.
And 2, because one of the reasons I feel like it's not a productive use of our time is because this was already literally adjudicated on and a unanimous.
Dude, you're bringing this up. Right. You're the one talking about this.
Right. You are okay with a president who was found guilty of sexual abuse that you yourself recognize was a rape if he did in fact do it. The fact that you're okay with that, the fact that your burden of proof for Trump lies somewhere beyond the adjudication in a civil court, that is absurd to me. Yeah, yes, criminal courts have a higher burden of proof than
sure.
Than
do you think
civil courts.
Do you think Trump abused children?
Yes, I think he probably did.
Oh, really? Where's the evidence of that?
Him hiding the Epstein files is strong circumstantial evidence of him being implicated.
Did the Biden administration hide it?
During the Biden administration.
So why didn't they release anything?
Dude, you're asking your questions too fast for me to answer them. You just spitballed 4 questions at me, and I actually.
You're talking significantly longer than I am. What are you talking about?
It's my show. I'm in charge here, and I need to keep us on track. Now, why are you okay with a president who was found civilly liable of doing something that you yourself define as rape? You never answered that question.
Yeah, because properly. I think the claim that she made is ridiculous, personally.
Okay, so we're moving on to why you don't trust the legal system. Do you not trust court cases at all? Is a court case not a good enough burden of proof for thinking that somebody did something?
There is. Yeah, I think there is corruption in our criminal justice system. Do you agree or disagree?
I do agree.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay. But it's not meaningful to you that the president was found civilly liable for sexual abuse.
Well, so do you think there's any potential that there's maybe a little corruption in this case, or there's absolutely no corruption here, but there is corruption in the system?
I think that when the system is corrupt, it's hard to decide if there was no corruption in any case. I think there's
awesome, yeah, right. Including this one. Thank you, guest or host. I appreciate that.
Right, yeah. No system is perfect, but I think that the evidence in the E. Jean Carroll case, which has been gone through to death by debate streamers like myself, including myself on other occasions, shows pretty clearly that those 9 jurors did in fact have good reason, especially when you consider the jury strikes that the Trump defense had in order to ensure that jury would not be stacked against him. So again, the burden is on you to show me that system failed, because the legal system in terms of these sorts of suits usually doesn't fail once it makes it this far. So the burden is on you to prove to me that the evidence was bad, and you're not bringing that evidence forward. It's not my job to tell you why
maybe
when
right, you're making the claim, look, sir, you're making the positive claim that the evidence was sufficient. I ask you to present the evidence of your positive claim, and you refuse to do it. And you're like, no, you should listen to other people's talking about it, because it's been talked to at length. And yet I have not been provided any evidence. Sorry.
As he was already adjudicated as guilty. But what I'm saying is that as the person who runs this live, I have to decide how to spend my time wisely so that I can do the best that I'm doing here. And taking every call down that deep rabbit hole every time it comes up is not a good use of my time. And I think you've heard those talking points. Do you want to move on?
Well, you should have it prepared if this is the only thing that you talk talk about, right? Like, if this is your main thing that you want to push the conversation to, I think you should have the evidence of your claim ready to go. So if there's evidence outside of the claims of Eugene Carroll, I think you should be prepared to show it. And I welcome you to send it. I know you have nothing. You don't want to show evidence.
No,
understandable.
I got paid to boot you, is what happened.
Yeah, dude, keep the e-bigging up. That's awesome.
Niche from TikTok paid me $25. Says kick bully.
This is great. No, I appreciate it. Have a great day, dude, and enjoy talking about the same cookie cutter like topic over and over again. Yeah, that's awesome. I feel bad for that guy.
He has been kicked. Anyway, thank you very much for the donation. I appreciate that very much. That was fun. That one's probably going on YouTube. Thank you for giving it a wonderful conclusion. My goodness, like it's exactly the. I was literally talking about this before the guy called in. There were 3 or 4 things he did that I had just gone through explaining that people do repeatedly. And one of them is holding you down on something that you don't have a positive argument on. It's like, dude, like just because I'm not going to spend 18 minutes regurgitating all the Eugene Carroll evidence again, suddenly Trump is innocent. Like, hey, do this. Here, I do that. Make an argument against this. I have a great argument against this. What's the evidence of that? Here's the evidence of that. What's the argument for this? Oh man, that's like a 20-minute discussion that people have 5 times a day, including myself. Can we just do something else? Ha! I got you, L host. It's just like, no, dude, like, you could ask me a million things and I could say, okay, I'm going to talk about this one of them. And then you would point at the 999,000 of them that I didn't answer and say, look at all these W's for me. It's just terrible, terrible bad faith debating. So yeah, thanks for paying me to boot that guy. That's been fun. I've never been paid to boot somebody before. That was really cool. I thank you so much.